Hey folks, Paul here from ImpulsiveCulinarian.com, and in this video we're going to be talking about homemade gluten-free white bread that rocks. Okay, so let me just talk a little bit about the cost of white bread versus gluten-free white bread. If ever you've been to the store to buy a regular, good old-fashioned loaf of your just run-of-the-mill bread, you could probably get it for around $2 to $3, maybe a little less. It tastes like cardboard, but a general price, for normal bread is around $2 to $3. I was extremely surprised to find out early on in my culinary adventures that a loaf of gluten-free white bread is like double the price. $6, $7, $8. The worst part is that compared to the normal size bread, a gluten-free piece of bread is tiny. So you're paying double the price and you're getting half the bread. What a ripoff. So it didn't take me long to figure out that it's a very good idea if you have the inclination to start making your very own homemade gluten-free white bread. So before I get into the actual ingredients list for my recipe, what I'd like to talk to you about is the fact that there's so many gluten-free flours and starches out there, and it can be a real pain in the butt trying to navigate what has good flavor, what has the proper consistency. The chemistry of these ingredients is very daunting. I've spent years trying to perfect all of my various gluten-free recipes. White bread was a challenge for me because there's a lot of gluten-free flours that are different colors, different textures that make it look like a whole wheat bread. I didn't want that. I wanted a good gluten-free white bread. So finding gluten-free flours and starches that mixed together well and still yielded a white bread product, that was the tough challenge. This recipe has been years in the making, okay? So let's talk about the specific ingredients, all right? Here's how it goes. Okay, so the ingredient list is going to be broken down into 3 parts. 1 being the yeast mixture. For that, you're going to need 3/4 cup of warm water, 3 teaspoons of active dry yeast, okay? The traditional kind is just fine. And 2 teaspoons of sugar. I like to use golden organic cane sugar because that's what I use. Part 2 is the dry ingredients. For that is as follows. 1 1/3 cup of tapioca flour. Tapioca starch and tapioca flour are the exact same thing. 2/3 cup of potato starch. Make sure not potato flour, potato starch. 2/3 cup of corn starch. And again, the starch, not the flour. And it's certainly not the cornmeal. 2/3 cup of white rice flour. Brown rice flour has a little bit of a gluten-free taste to it that I don't particularly like in this recipe. So I highly recommend 2/3 cup of white rice flour. Okay, 2/3 cup of sweet rice flour. This is a very interesting ingredient. It acts almost like a starch, but it still retains a lot of the flour properties. Okay, so after that flour and starch mix, you're going to add 1 tablespoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of guar gum or xanthan gum. Guar gum is more affordable. I usually keep that in the pantry, but either one will do. And then 1 teaspoon of fine sea salt. Third and last section of this recipe is the wet ingredients, which are 1 cup of warm, lukewarm water, 1 egg, preferably organic, 1/3 cup of butter or margarine, whatever your family uses, 2 tablespoons of organic honey. Okay, let's put all this together and get started. All right, let's make some delicious homemade gluten-free white bread. None of this gluten-free aftertaste stuff. Not in my kitchen, okay? First thing you want to do, first step, is to make your yeast mixture and let it proof off the side. So get yourself 3/4 cup of warm water. We're lucky in our town, the tap water is absolutely perfect. So we can totally drink it. If not, all you gotta do is boil it and let it cool down until it gets to 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 40 degrees Celsius. I do this by hand because I do it a lot. I gotta know. Let's see if I got it right. So if I've done my job right, my instant read thermometer should give me 100 degrees. I'm not making this up. Once you get your warm water exactly 100 degrees, you want to get your yeast and your sugar in the bowl. I use this, you see it everywhere. It's the Fleischmann's traditional active dry yeast. There's bread machine versions and all this stuff. Get the active dry yeast, the traditional version is perfect. So to get this sucker started, I usually use this little gravy whisk and I get it going to mix it up until it's all blended together.
For real or not?
Yeah, for real.
Oh.
You want to say hi?
Hello.
Sous chef. So once the yeast mixture is whisked together nicely, you're going to see that there are no more grains of that yeast, and the sugar is completely dissolved. So you put this aside in a warm location for a little while to sit. So next thing you want to do is get a great big mixing bowl. All your dry ingredients go right in there. Take a great big egg whisk and make sure that they're all blended properly. For the third and last part of the recipe, you want to put together your remaining wet ingredients. So get yourself a fresh clean bowl and add 1 cup of warm water. It doesn't have to be spot on 100 degrees, just as long as it's not cold. Add to your water 1 organic egg. Go organic. Next, you want to take 1/3 of a cup of butter or margarine. We use Dairy Free, soy-free margarine because in our family, we have a problem with soy and dairy, so this is a product that we need to use. If you can have butter or you're dairy friendly, go right ahead. 1/3 of a cup. While you're microwaving your margarine or butter, put 2 tablespoons of organic honey into your water mixture. So once your butter is melted, add it to the water, egg, and honey mixture. And it looks pretty gruesome, I know, but you whisk that together to make sure that it's completely mixed and consistent throughout. I want to take a second to talk to you about bread pans. It's very important you do not use the smaller 8.5 by 4.5 inch bread pan. It's too small. The bread dough is going to come right out and it's going to fall all over the oven. You're going to hate me. You're going to curse my name under your breath. You have to use the full 5 inch by 9 inch by 3 inch deep pan. If it doesn't say on the pan what the size is, how do you know? Get a measuring tape. Measure it from the inside dimensions. Can you see that? 5 inch by 9 inch by 3 inch deep. That's the right pan to use. So once you know you've got the right size bread pan, take a little bit of margarine or butter and make sure to grease the inside of your pan. There you go, nicely greased bread pan, ready to put the stuff in. I do this before mixing my ingredients so that the baking powder and all of the guar gum doesn't start to congeal until I've got it in the pan. Gluten-free bread, you never need. You do not need the dough. It's impossible. It's a soup. In order for it to be nice and light and puffy, you have to make it almost like a liquid. So you can see my yeast is nicely proofed. There's a nice dome there over the top. Depending on the weather and the humidity, this dome could get quite large while you're mixing your dry ingredients. It almost looks like a mushroom sometimes. But I know that this is nicely proofed and ready to go. There's my other wet mixture of egg and butter, etc. And of course I'm going to put all of those into the same big mixing bowl where I've whisked together my dry ingredients so that they are consistent. So having said that, get a good cake spatula and let's mix parts 1, 2, and 3 of all of our ingredients together in the great big mixing bowl. All right, let's start with the yeast mixture. Give your egg mixture another quick whisk before adding it in, just to make sure that the honey is dissolved in there. Now with your cake spatula, go to town. Mix this up as good as you can. So you can see I'm almost done mixing my bread dough, and it is looking like stew or soup. And believe me, this is the right consistency, all right? I'm gonna finish mixing this with both hands. Now to finish this off properly, I'm gonna use my whisk for the last stage of mixing. I wanna get rid of all the lumps and the last little bits that have not been mixed together. All right, that's where you want it to be. Nice and smooth, no lumps, no bumps. So with your bread dough all mixed together and nice and smooth, use your cake spatula and get it into your greased bread pan. Okay, so with all of this stuff in the bread pan, let it rise for 20 minutes. Set a timer because you do not want it to rise above the edge of the pan. As soon as it gets just around 1/4 inch below, depending on the temperature, it might rise faster or slower. So just keep an eye. You want it to be around 1/4 inch just below the top of your pan. While you're doing that, set your oven to 375. And now we wait. So look at that, after 18 minutes, it's risen. Wow, I waited a little bit too long. I got around 1/8 inch just before the top of the pan. So time to put that in for 40 minutes at 375. Okay, 40 minutes to the second. Take it out. Oh, that's some bread. All right? Now, I admit, I waited a little bit too long while it was rising, and as a result, it just drooped a little bit over the edge. But when you're on your game and you're paying attention, unlike me, it's going to be just right. It will fit exactly in the pan, but this is not a big deal. You can always cut that off to fit it in your toaster. If you do not have Teflon hands, wait 5 minutes for the pan to cool and then flip it out onto a handy cooling rack. Otherwise, just do it right away. You let this cool for at least 20 to 30 minutes before you even dare slice into it. So after 30 minutes, put your hand on the loaf. Just feel it. If it still feels really hot, it could be a warm day outside. It's taking a while for it to cool down. Let it rest for another 15, 30 minutes, however long it takes. Best kind of knife to use for cutting bread is a large serrated knife like this. Look at the beautiful bread that's inside waiting for you. Okay, it's a wonderful, airy, fresh, moist, spongy cake. It's delicious. And the size of the bread, it's big. It's a normal sandwich bread. So much more interesting to use this for sandwiches than those tiny little Udi gluten-free breads. So if you're the type of family that goes through a loaf or two every week, then you can do what we do. Is I usually just take this, put it in a plastic bag or a Ziploc, and I put it in the fridge. And as I need it, it's nice and cool, it's easy to slice, you can toast it, you can freeze it, you can do whatever you want. It'll last around a week in the fridge that way. Kids are watching. Come on in. All right, cool. Sam's shy, but Cassidy wants in. Do you like the gluten-free bread, yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah. Ah, good answer. There's a bunch of super fans over here. If you liked this video, what are they supposed to do, girls?
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. That's right. My name is Paul from ImpulsiveCulinarian.com, and thanks for watching. You good? Yeah. Hard to please the kids. They don't make this stuff up.